Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good whatever time of day it is, wherever you are right now. Thank you for tuning in to the Conversations with Dr. Don show. The show is produced and broadcast from the Portland, Oregon area of the U.S. And for your first-time viewers, Conversations with Dr. Don is an ongoing series of one-hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people, like most of you out there, about who they are, as unique, one-of-a-kind individuals, and about whatever it is we have decided to talk about, and we're going to talk about tonight. Topical issues on December 11, 2017. And a lot more stuff we'll be talking about, and they're all topical issues, and that's why I chose this generic title, because we hadn't agreed on a specific one. But with the notes you sent me, we need 4 pages to talk about what we're talking about. So, as you know, Michael has been on the show. Michael Sonnleitner, he's been on the show a number of times in the past. And I hope we have you on some more in the future because you're so interesting and we have fun in addition to exploring important and fun stuff.
As long as we're having fun. If I'm not fun tonight, then don't invite me back.
How are you feeling right now?
Good.
Yeah. You know how I'm feeling?
What?
You know how I'm feeling?
You probably are getting a little tired, but you look great.
Really?
Yeah.
Liar.
No. You fake it well.
Thank you. All right, so the bio segment, you've done this before, but we have viewers who haven't seen you before, so I'm going to ask you bio stuff anyhow, just for the record. I keep revising this page. If I were to ask your best friend, who is Michael? What would your best friend say? Michael is what? Be your best friend.
My best friend?
Yeah. You have a best friend?
My wife.
Uh-huh. What would she say if she's talking about you? Michael is what?
She would probably say he's something of a workaholic.
Uh-huh.
He is very active every day, trying to make a difference in the world.
Uh-huh.
Probably that, I don't know, I do my homework, and I try to make a difference in the world.
Uh-huh.
I'm a caring person.
That's how she sees you, huh?
I think so.
Uh-huh.
I mean,
Does she like you?
Oh, I think she likes me. Otherwise, we wouldn't have lasted 34 years.
34 years.
Yeah.
So when and where were you born?
I was born in Wichita, Kansas.
Kansas. Wheat fields?
No, Wichita is city. It's a big city.
I mean the Kansas, not the city. You're starting already.
1949. Though I was not a neighbor of the Koch brothers, so you don't need to ask that one.
Damn.
Well,
Oops, pardon.
whoa. That kind of language is not acceptable in Kansas.
The families. So, uh-huh. So why were you born?
Why?
Why does people always ask me the same question?
Why was I born?
Yes, why?
Well,
Michael?
I don't recall my previous incarnations, so I don't exactly know, except that obviously I didn't become self-aware and enlightened in my previous life. So they sent me back here to continue my learning experience.
So you're a Buddhist?
No.
Okay.
Well, I mean, yes. I mean, I've been influenced by Hindu thinking and by Mohandas Gandhi substantially. And so like Gandhi, I would probably say, without trying to be pompous about it, that I am, at least to some extent, a Muslim, a Hindu, a Christian, a Jew, a Buddhist, a Taoist, a Confucian.
Really? You spent that much time studying religion?
I have spent a lot of time. Practicing. To me, there's a commonality throughout the major world's faiths.
Yes, of course.
An overlapping. Aldous Huxley called it the perennial philosophy. That's a book that he wrote. It's not well known.
I know I've read some of this stuff already, but not that one.
And so I tend to find most in common with that common ground, in the sense that perennial philosophy, though I do accept Hinduism as a tenet of my own faith.
Yeah.
So, why was I born? Why are any of us born? I believe to learn what we can about who we are and our role in the universe.
Uh-huh.
Probably to learn that we all are pretty much the same stuff connected with the Godhead, and we just didn't know it.
Uh-huh. Share a little more about the Godhead.
Well, could be a head, but I don't think of it that way.
Uh-huh.
What I think of it as the ocean, kind of an unlimited ocean. And each soul, yours, whether you believe this or not, and mine,
Whether you believe it or
are
not.
also made of H2O.
Yeah.
Now, the soul isn't a material substance, but the relationship of my soul to your soul to the ocean is we're the same substance. We're all, in a sense, H2O.
Mm-hmm.
And the objective of life, from my point of view, is to become so self-aware that you identify with the creative force that it permeates throughout all of creation. And at the point of death, you can merge back into the Godhead, that is the ocean, and cease to be distinct.
Uh-huh.
You're liberated when you cease to return back
Uh-huh.
in a new form. And so I am pretty Hindu in that regards. Or as my wife might say, a Christian heretic.
That
Because
would be...
there was a heresy with this sort of view attached to it.
What were you when you were a little fellow? Would you have
What
an
was I?
organized religion at that time?
I was skinnier than I was now.
Yeah, religious-wise.
Oh,
Religion-wise.
well, I was raised Missouri Synod Lutheran, which is very conservative.
When did you give that up?
I never really completely give anything up.
Okay.
Everything, all of my past continues to be part of me.
Okay.
And so I began as Christian, and I'm still very Jesus-centric, and
Me too.
I can call myself Christian even if people might not entirely agree with that.
With a small c is
That's
what
their
I say.
choice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's their choice.
Yeah. How about your formal education? You had a bunch of that, as I remember from our past interviews.
Oh, I made it through elementary school. Barely.
I know, they probably
I
tried
mean-
to throw you out a number of times.
No, goodness gracious. I mean, when I was in the first grade, I had scarlet fever and the measles and the mumps, and I lost 7 of the 9 months sick. But they decided
was the one
to...
after the other?
Yeah, yeah. I had a bad start with elementary school, and so that might have had some brain damage associated with it. Who knows?
Might have.
It could explain a few things in terms of my current personality, but they passed me on to the second grade, and I just continued on, and eventually I got a PhD from the University of Minnesota, Minneapolis,
In what?
in political science.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
Did you find that useful in your life, your PhD in political science?
Well, sure.
How so?
Knowledge is useful
Oh.
in our life.
Oh, I
It
love it.
could have been a biology major. It could have been anything. Political science is as good as any other.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have a good broad range of educational background, then you might even be able to carry on a conversation with, I don't know, someone like you, even if we
Yeah.
don't have a lot in common.
Why political science?
Oh, it was literally a coin toss in my case. I was the beginning of my junior year at Whitman College in Walla Walla, and they needed for majors to be declared by the next day. And so I had a whole bunch of things operating, and so I pulled out a coin, and I first had a competition between religion and philosophy, flipped the coin, philosophy won. Okay. And so then I took out the same coin, and I
You
went,
really did that?
yeah, I did. This is how I chose my major, because I liked everything. And so then it was sociology, versus political science. Toss the coin, political science won. And then there was, of course, the championship toss, and that was between philosophy and political science, and political science won. And so I focused primarily on political philosophy with a minor in religion and sociology, so I never gave up anything.
Oh, so that's how you got your roots and how you think and how you are.
I don't know.
Or did you get any of that from your genetic heritage?
I haven't been tested for my gene pool. I don't know if I want to, because heaven knows what we might find.
I have an idea what we might find. Contrarian, number two.
Maybe the Koch brothers really are my family.
Uh-oh.
Closer than we think. Who
Let's
knows?
stop this conversation right now because you're scaring me.
No, they're human beings too. They could be. I've never met them, so.
Yeah, but I love you and I don't like them, so
You've never even met them, have you? Have you had them on your show?
no.
Well then, see. Don't start judging people.
And so any other education that you acquired through the years besides your formal education?
Oh, I think we can learn from everyone we meet. And so I can't say as I have, but I am very aware that I've learned a lot from people who never finished high school. A lot of people that I worked with in the fields of fruit, apples, pears, peaches, nectarines, in the Wenatchee area, north of Wenatchee,
Yeah.
were migrant workers. I spent 15 summers of my youth picking fruit.
And California?
Once again, in Washington State, near Wenatchee,
Oh, yes.
a little
yeah.
north of Wenatchee.
Now I got it.
And I learned a lot from folks, even when we didn't speak the same language. I could learn a lot from how they lived and how they related to their families. And I learned almost all my swear words, which I try not to use much, from a fallen away Mormon who I picked fruit with for 3 summers, who would tell us all, us young teenagers, about his exploits in prostitution rings and houses throughout eastern Washington.
A Mormon?
Oh, a Mormon, fallen away. He wasn't very well practicing. He had a really filthy mouth, and so he taught me a lot of vocabulary that I never had contact with before.
So you decided not to become a Mormon?
That wasn't the issue. Honestly, I don't think I've ever met a Mormon that I haven't liked,
Yes,
including
same
him.
here, same here.
Though most of them didn't have his kind of mouth.
You never swore in your life,
I'm
did you?
showing some conservative roots in terms of kind of puritanical roots.
You're
The Missouri Synod Lutheran.
Yeah.
No alcohol, no drugs, no dancing when I was associated with that group. And so very strict, no swearing for sure.
So you were in education in your work life?
I think we're all being educated in our lives if we're open to it, no matter what we're doing.
But in your choice of profession or how you're earning your keep?
Oh, well, I'm retired now, so I'm not earning my keep anymore.
Uh-huh. So what are you doing instead?
I have 41 years classroom teaching,
Yeah,
and I was
41
teaching.
years. I'm not going to let you skip over that. That's important. 41 years.
Yeah, it was great. It was really a vocation that allowed me to be a student for life.
Student for life.
Yeah, that's not just a phrase. I didn't want to stop being a student, and so the best way to get paid for being a student is to teach. And so I continued to learn from my students as they might have learned a little bit from me over the years, and it was a joy going to work every day. I mean, it was fun.
Mm-hmm.
Not all fun, but the learning experience was always
Do any of your
challenging.
ex-students like you today?
Are there any ex-students who like
Who
me?
like you today?
There might be 1 or 2 watching this program.
I knew you were going to nail me.
That's for them to say.
I'm sure there are.
I keep in touch with a number,
Really?
but over the years, I figure there have been over 15,000. And so my brain doesn't remember names very well. It's a weakness that I have. And I oftentimes am confronted with that weakness as someone introduces themselves to me. It could be most anywhere on the coast, you know, at Moe's restaurant or something on the coast, and that happened. Michael Sunleitner? Yes. I was a student of yours. Really? That's wonderful. When?
Who are you?
Oh, about 20 years ago.
And occasionally that
I
happens.
hope you're doing really well. Yeah, and most of the time I don't remember them as an individual because it's just too much.
So many.
But I'm always pleased that for some reason a large number of them do remember me.
I remember you. So what are you doing now since you're not officially teaching in the classroom? Are you still using what you did all your life until now? Are you still involved with the educational system peripherally or what?
Or what?
Yeah.
For sure. Let's see, it's about 2.5 years ago now that I was required by law in Oregon to retire from my job at Portland Community College, full-time teaching.
Yeah.
And that's because I had perhaps the silly notion that I should run for office and become elected as a trustee for Portland Community College.
Yes.
No former employee of PCC had ever before won a seat on the PCC Board of Directors, the 7-person Board of Trustees that make final policy for everything relating to Portland Community College, from tuition to hiring the district president to declaring Portland Community College a sanctuary institution, which we did a year ago.
Yay!
All of this was kind of unexpected, but at the time, 2.5 years ago, I felt internally compelled to run. I was a little surprised when I won the office in a 3-way race. And as soon as I won, I had to retire because under Oregon law, you cannot be a trustee of the same institution that you're an employee of.
Yeah.
And that makes some sense. So I'm a retiree now.
Yeah. And do you spend any time as a trustee now?
Yeah. I have, this Thursday, I have meetings from 4 in the afternoon until we hope to be finished by 8. I'm not sure that'll happen. Once a month we have a board meeting. In between that we have lots of activities where we seek to, each of the 7 of us, according to what time we have available to us, we go to events, we network, we promote Portland Community College, we act as kind of ambassadors. During the most recent bond campaign that PCC was asking the voters to approve, just about a month ago in November, $185 million bond was approved, and I was actively campaigning for that. So I figure I probably put in between 20 and 30 hours a week in my retirement.
I knew you were going to be busy.
Just to Portland Community College in one way or another, networking, meetings, keeping in touch with my constituents, which are over 100,000 voters, mostly in Southeast Portland. So, yeah, I'm reasonably busy.
Are you having any effect that you appreciate being on this board?
I cannot claim a lot personally. I am a team player. I try to work with my board colleagues. The district president, Mark Mitsui, is an excellent choice, in my opinion, that we did make to hire over a year ago to be the district president.
His or her name?
Mark Mitsui.
Ah.
He's a he.
Okay, Mark, M-A-R-K.
Yes.
Okay.
Though, in any case, he has many values that I share. An excellent listener, a very good person collaborating, listening to people before making decisions. The decision to become a sanctuary campus was a controversial issue. A year ago, this was being brought to us by students, many students that I had had before in the classroom and who I'd worked with in student government, so I knew them probably better than most of the other board members. I worked with them to formulate what I would think of as reasonable expectations of what a sanctuary campus would mean in terms of policy.
What is a sanctuary campus? I know most people know, but just to cover it for sure, say a few words, a sanctuary campus, a sanctuary city. What does that mean?
Well, it may mean different things. For us, there were about 12 different bullet points in terms of specifying what it meant. So for
Sure.
other things, it meant that we would abide by federal law to keep the privacy intact of all students enrolled on any of our 4 campuses. We have over 75,000 students.
Well, you got to know who Mexicans or Muslims are, don't you?
They can identify themselves when they register, if they want to.
But they don't have to.
They don't have to.
Okay.
And even if they do, that's private information. Their address, their social security numbers, or tax ID numbers in some cases if they're undocumented, various things must be kept private by federal law. We're forbidden providing that sort of information to you or to anyone else without a direct court order. A subpoena is necessary. We need a warrant to divulge any information. And so we basically confirmed that position very forcefully in an era of Trump, where he was, of course, very unhappy with this sort of pushback from any institutions.
To take sanctuary means to avoid what the authorities would do with you if you didn't have this protection of the church. Sanctuary started in churches many years ago.
In Europe, yes. It was in the Middle Ages. If you took refuge in a church, then there was a tradition in which the authorities could not come and take you away. It would violate the sanctity of the church. I did learn that that tradition did not carry over to the United States. So taking sanctuary in a church in the United States has very bad public relations associated with it if you go in and arrest someone in the church. But they can do so, and it's not against the law in any sense.
Hey.
So when it comes to the United States, the city of Portland, the state of Oregon, the institution of Portland Community College, for us, sanctuary is doing all we can, consistent with the law, to protect all of our students' privacy and to not yield information to any external law enforcement agency unless there is a direct warrant for it. That means you personally are being sought after by a warrant. Our faculty will be asked to have these statements in their syllabuses, saying that they will protect the privacy of all students, including undocumented students. Our security people that provide public safety for the campuses are instructed not to cooperate with any federal official, including Immigration's Custom Enforcement,
or looking for information about another human
unless
being.
there is a direct warrant for that person's arrest.
You must be some kind of a communist, aren't you?
I believe in just following federal privacy law.
Yeah.
But making it public. A lot of what this is about is not so much confronting Mr. Trump. It's really providing a safe learning environment for all of our students. And that is an obligation that the institution has. And I'm very pleased to say that we are taking that obligation very seriously.
So Portland Community College is part of the left-wing conspiracy on the West Coast.
It's not left or right to show compassion to people and treat them as you would want to be treated yourself in their circumstances.
Do you have a partner, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, or
Well,
whatever?
my wife of
Yeah.
34 years, yes.
34. That's a long time. Does she like you?
She keeps saying that she does. So I'm assuming that she's telling me the
I'm
truth.
sure she does. Yeah. Any grandchildren?
You find that surprising?
Notice how I ignored it. Of course she likes you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have 3 grandchildren by a former foster daughter who we now consider to be our daughter, Margarita. She was born in Mexico. She was undocumented when she came over. She was, for a time, in detention for no crime except for being undocumented. Thankfully, we were able to cooperate with Catholic Charities and other groups to have her join our household as a foster child. She was underage. And now she is my daughter. And her most recent child, now 2 years old, is Michael, named after me.
Named after Grandpa.
Named after Grandpa. In fact, I'm going to be babysitting Michael, I believe, probably tomorrow morning, all day Wednesday and Thursday morning also.
Do you notice anything about him that reminds him of you? That reminds you of him, or vice versa?
He's a boy, and he's very active, and I guess I was too. He's a lot more muscular. He's really a hunk. I was a skinny kid. I think Michael could be a real athlete.
And your political persuasion, I didn't ask that. Are you left, right, or center, or where are you on the political continuum?
I don't see a continuum like this.
Mm-hmm.
I see a continuum like this.
Okay.
In other words, I think the extreme right and the extreme left almost touch. It kind of curve it around.
Mm-hmm.
The difference between someone like Hitler and Stalin is not that great.
They're authoritarian, so that defies putting them on some continuum.
Well, yes, but here I'm saying they almost touch. In their brutality, it would be an interesting argument to see which one was responsible for killing more people. And so, as far as I'm concerned, the continuum doesn't apply very well. I'm self-described green. That is, I've been a member of the Pacific Green Party since the mid-1980s.
You're a lefty.
Oh, you don't know Greens very well.
I don't.
Greens would say, we're neither really left nor right. We try to be in front. It's a little bit self-righteous to say that. But we try to be progressive. And there are elements of green ideology. Since I taught ideologies, I can go off on that tangent. There are elements that are socialist, that are left. For example, Greens will be favoring universal health care, preferably a single-payer system. On the other end, and a welfare net, that maybe a guaranteed annual income, a number of things that you'd probably call really left, right?
Yes.
But on the conservative side, they typically are more like European-style conservatives.
That's real conservative.
Really conservative in the sense of protecting the environment, protecting traditions that are worth protecting.
Of course.
Not tearing down that Victorian home so as to make a parking lot. We value things in very much in ways like some Native American cultures do, saying that you need to think 7 generations into the future before you start adopting a technology that you don't have all the kinks worked out for.
Okay.
And then liberal in the sense of being extremely for freedom of speech, press, assembly. As much as any Republican libertarian, Greens are going to be free speech advocates.
Yeah.
And
including marching in Skokie with a Nazi flag.
yes, I think most all Greens would. if not be members of the ACLU, would be is sympathetic to it.
You said the magic word, genuflect, ACLU.
I'm not genuflecting,
I
but I've been a card
vague
carrying.
memories.
I've been a card-carrying member for a long time.
Okay, we're running out of time for this
Yes.
segment, but I want to ask you about persons from history or alive today that you particularly admired or look up to. Any names come to mind for you?
That are still alive today.
Either alive today or from the past. It doesn't matter. If you admired them or looked up because of who and what they were about, any names come to mind?
Oh yeah, sure, lots.
We've only got 2 hours.
Well, no,
Michael.
I would say in the past
Oh man, yeah.
50 years,
Aldous
let's
Huxley,
say.
you mentioned that. I didn't.
Oh well, he was a great thinker.
Yeah.
In the past 50 years.
Ashley Montague.
No, I mean he's okay,
All right.
but maybe
this is
he's
your story.
maybe
yeah.
he's one of your favorites.
Of course.
You want to tell us about Ashley Montague?
I'm not the guest tonight. You
Well,
are.
we could listen to you.
Was it Ashley Montague who said cow's milk is an excellent food for little cows?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's enough.
Okay, well, thank you.
Continue.
That's a big claim to fame. I suppose my favorite people from, let's say, the past 100 years would include Eugene Debs, who was a labor organizer and democratic socialist. Not so much a Marxist, but a democratic socialist.
Your leftist credentials are creeping
Mohandas
out.
Gandhi, who was a
Yeah.
revolutionary of
Yeah.
the First Order in India. Martin Luther King Jr., of course, who was a moderate who became something of a nonviolent revolutionary toward the end of his life.
How about Jesus?
Well, Jesus continues to live, of course, but he was on the planet in the flesh about 2,000 years ago, so
That's
he's
what I'm
not
talking
in
about.
my 100-year
That's what I'm
time
talking
frame.
about.
Though through Jesus coming in through Dorothy Day, one of the founders of the Catholic worker movement, Jesus lives on in incredibly inspiring people. I attended a memorial service for a Franciscan priest just about a month ago in Tucson, Arizona. Jerry Zawada is his name, was his name, but is his name. And Jerry spent his entire life fighting for social justice, seeking to oppose nuclear weapons, beating swords into plowshares, literally being sent to jail for doing that with a hammer, hitting nuclear missile
Yeah.
silo
Yes, yes.
sites, getting arrested for putting water out in the Arizona desert for people who would otherwise potentially die of thirst as they came across the border from Mexico.
Yeah,
Jerry is an inspiration.
of course.
I mean, I'm just getting to know him in his death. Someone who was arrested over 150 times over a 40-year
Oh.
period.
Talk about putting it on the line.
Matter of conscience. I don't expect to ever match that.
We better stop because we can go on with this line. Let's take a break and then we'll come back and talk about some other stuff. Well, we are back. Thanks for staying tuned. And for your viewers who missed the opening of the show, Conversations with Dr. Don is an ongoing series of 1-hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people like most of you out there about who they are as unique, one-of-a-kind individuals and about whatever it is we've decided to talk about tonight. And we're talking about topical issues on December 11, this day in history, and my guest, Michael Sonnleitner, who is a repeat guest because he's so interesting and fun to visit with, and he presents challenges to me because he's so smart and so human, and he's difficult to pin down. And I don't like to pin him down, but I like to pin down people who can outwit me, because if I discover that I can debate a little bit, but never mind. Let's continue on. Now we're going to talk about the election tomorrow, is it? Roy Moore? What are you going to say about that? That's topical.
It is certainly topical.
Uh-huh.
It's, I think, a tip of a much larger iceberg
Uh-huh.
that is really, I think, challenging, very rightly so, the status quo in the United States, potentially way beyond our borders, when it comes to proper behavior of men towards women. And that is something that has evolved over time, and I hope will evolve towards much greater respect and equality. Roy Moore reflects, I think, a cultural attitude that is in need of change. Mr. Trump himself, of course, has been accused by 16 women now of inappropriate sexual behavior on his part towards them over the years.
There was a video of that. We saw it happening.
Well, that's fake news. That's fake news. How in the world he could actually say that is remarkable to me.
And he's
In
not
case.
paying the price for saying it. That says something about we are as citizens of this country.
Well,
That's a significant percentage of human beings who ignore that and choose to discount it in favor of some other motivation that they have behind the scenes.
Well, white men especially, of power, and Mr. Trump and Roy Moore and many others have been in that category, have gotten away with all kinds of behavior that was almost expected of them among their peers.
Yeah.
I'm not letting them get off the hook. What I'm saying is locker room talk was locker room talk.
Yeah.
I played football. There was locker room talk. I never really felt comfortable with it personally, and that's partly because of my very conservative Missouri Synod Lutheran evangelical background.
The backroom.
You shouldn't show such disrespect.
Is one thing, but behaving
In any context, you know,
and women
my father would not accept that sort of behavior from me, ever. And I don't, but I see it certainly, I saw it myself, I heard it. I didn't generally complain about it at the time because that would make me stick out even all the more. I was odd enough as it was, not fitting in. Am I going to start criticizing my football buddies in high school?
You were odd enough but not fitting in. I didn't know that was true for you. How are you odd enough by not fitting in?
Well, I think all of us have our challenges. I was raised by a single-parent father. I was the only child at the time, and I was very much of a person who would get along on my own, and very introvert. And so playing things like football for me were team sports that were helpful for my personal development. Did not come naturally to work well with other people. I spent most of my youth alone.
Really?
Well, it's all right. I mean, I didn't know anything else, so I didn't feel deprived. But in the context of men behaving towards women in the locker room or elsewhere in an extremely disrespectful manner, I saw it. I did not like it, but I honestly didn't feel comfortable being part of it because that was not the cultural background of my family. of my household.
Did you ever behave disrespectfully toward women growing up?
Did I what?
Ever behave disrespectfully toward girls or
Oh,
women? when
I'm sure
growing
I
up?
did, sure.
Uh-huh.
I mean, there are degrees
Of course.
of disrespect. I mean, you know, I would tell bad jokes. I've been, you know, it was not excusable. It was simply normal.
Yes.
Recently, I've been watching some of my favorite youth musicals. My Fair Lady, Brigadoon, Man from La Mancha, Camelot.
Love is where you find it.
Yes, How to Handle a Woman. King Arthur's How to Handle a Woman. There's a way, said the wise old man.
And that produces...
How to handle a woman? We're supposed to handle a woman? I used to sing that song, and I liked that song.
Yeah.
It's only been really fairly recent. I'm ashamed to say even in the past 10 years or so, where my students, I can give them credit,
Yes.
for calling me out in little ways and some occasionally more blatant ways,
Really?
saying, that's just not proper now. You know, you're in the past. And it's tough for people who are getting up in years, supposedly mature, to modify their behavior and their attitudes towards the past to really accommodate a far more progressive and correct,
Is that
culturally correct.
Is that what's going on now with
Yes.
Moore and Trump?
Yes, except that they're living in the past. They needed my students. They need to be confronted. Their behavior needs to be confronted. And hopefully they are capable of learning. I believe everyone is capable of learning.
But are they willing to learn?
That's for them to decide. Al Franken, I believe, is very willing to learn.
I
mean,
do too.
I think he is sincere, I believe, in his
I do too.
apologies that he has made. And it's not just words, because he will be resigning his Senate seat. I believe that he's being strategic about that. I think he wants to do what he can to stop the Trump tax plan before he leaves to return and retire to Minnesota. But he will fulfill his promise. He will resign his Senate seat. Increasing numbers of people are asking Mr. Trump to consider resigning his presidency. 6 U.S. senators have spoken up. When it comes to Roy Moore in Alabama,
Hopeless.
well, no one is hopeless, but I would say the odds of him changing are probably fairly remote. But when he is confronted by the other U.S. senator from Alabama,
Yes.
who says, I am not voting for Roy Moore, he has crossed the line. The Republicans can do better. This is a direct quote from that senator. You can see that change is happening. It's not just a matter of trying to be politically correct.
Okay.
I think some people's hearts are genuinely being touched. They're being awakened to their own micro and sometimes macro aggressions of the past. And they have to choose how to cope with that and change. I believe change is in the air. Me too.
Optimist.
Well, it's happening. It's empirically happening.
Is Trump going to survive this full term of his first term here, or another year, 2 years? When is he going to be impeached? Do you think he's going to be impeached?
I do not think he's going to be resigning over sexual improprieties. I think his ego is far too big, and he's not. I don't think he is currently able to admit that he's wrong about much of anything in any realm.
Does he have a personality disorder?
I don't know. I'm not a psychologist, but he has his challenges like we all do. To answer your question,
No, I don't have those kinds of challenges like he has. I'm goofy, but I'm not a sociopath.
I'm happy to hear that.
Okay, let me
But
shut up and let you go.
that's what a sociopath would say. uh, I predict that Mr. Trump will resign or be impeached within 6 weeks after such time as his tax returns become public. And I see a number of different avenues by which those tax returns may become public. The most likely, I think, is through the ongoing investigations relating to Russia and his connections with Russia.
Will the system allow that to be available for the general populace to hear? I can't imagine allowing disclosure of the machinations
I think
going
the special
on.
prosecutor will likely have to have access.
He will have an accident.
And then there may be just a leak.
Stop it.
A Daniel Ellsberg-like person.
Oh man, there's a hero of mine.
Good man. And we need to take those risks. Good people need to take risks in this time of change. And that means confronting our own behaviors of the past and the present when people call upon us to look in a mirror and see how we're behaving. We need to modify our behaviors and just come clean, apologize, and move forward as we can. That's speaking of men, but that's speaking of anyone, attitudes towards LGBTQIA people. Mr. Moore has problems not only of living in the past with regards to his attitude towards women, but also towards the gay community in so many other ways. He is sadly stuck in the past. He may win, by the time this is aired, he may have won a Senate seat, but that will just be a bump in the road because change is happening. And if he doesn't win the Senate seat, that will be a major slap in the face of the status quo.
Change is happening, but the way you said that implies that change is happening in a direction that's favorable to ordinary citizens and people on the left. So I think change is happening, but in the other direction, they're reversing even the New Deal.
In the short term, the dangers of fascism are very real.
Okay.
Increased surveillance, inhibition of civil liberties, rolling back of elements of the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. There will be a great deal of pain. There already is pain. It will increase until, I think, the political change happens in Washington, D.C. And I do believe that because it's getting so bad for so many people, we can already see voter turnout increasing. Alabama will have a large voter turnout. That will not be good news for Mr. Moore. If it's a voter turnout of, I predict 45% or more, Mr. Moore will not win. That would be a high voter turnout for Alabama.
Yeah, oh yes.
A year from now, the 2018 November elections, the Republicans almost certainly have been shooting themselves in the foot enough that they will lose one or both chambers of Congress. Mr. Trump will be a lame duck president, assuming that he doesn't resign or is effectively impeached in the meantime. I see another year of pain, 3 years of some pain, and I think we have the opportunity, because of these major steps backwards politically in the United States this past year, to have major steps forwards, significant steps forward after the 2020 elections.
Will there be enough steps forward for the American empire to diminish and start moving in the other direction, such that we don't have bases all over the goddamn world? Pardon me.
Well, I think the empire will improve domestically. I think the odds for national health care and a single-payer system increased dramatically after 2020. Oregon may also have that on the ballot at that point in time as a state. That's quite possible. In terms of the empire abroad, that I think is much more difficult to crack that shell. The military-industrial complex is very real. The incredible amounts of money being spent on political campaigns in most states, like Oregon, without restraint.
Yes.
Makes it very difficult. 80% of the time, the side that spends more money wins. But an awakened civic awareness can reverse that trend. And I am hopeful, I'm not optimistic, but I am hopeful that we can have public financing of campaigns, probably begin, like in the city of Portland, we've experimented, go beyond that to states, beyond that eventually to the U.S. By the year 2030, that may be possible. And if we have public financing of campaigns, I think much of the complexes, military-industrial complex, healthcare-industrial complex, you name your complexes, prison-industrial complex, will be at serious risk of being broken because the weak side of those iron triangles is the campaign contribution flow to candidates. If we can inhibit that flow and even stop that flow through public financing, Republicans and Democrats will have their disagreements. And if there are a few elected Greens, we'll have even more disagreement. But they will be able to behave according to their conscience rather than their interest groups.
How many of those people have a conscience anymore?
No, I think everyone has.
Considering the power of the media and gavels and propaganda and conditioning people to believe stuff that's absolutely unreasonable and insane. If we're looking at reasoning.
I don't think conscience is so much a matter of learning and mind. I think it's a matter of empathy and the gut. And I think people every person is capable of feeling the pain of some others.
But will they allow themselves to feel the pain of some others? And I'm going to let that go.
I think, frankly, if they're not disposed to do it, we can undertake direct action in ways creatively, as again with Martin Luther King or Cesar Chavez or Mahatma Gandhi,
yes,
that are designed to touch the heart of the opponent and create a catharsis in the opponent that is capable of change. And we need to be assertive about that. We need to take risks like my friend Jerry Zawada did. We need to be willing to go to jail. Many people may have to be willing to give their lives on behalf of that change.
I like that.
But it can happen when we lose the fear that we suffer under. We can be capable of remarkable things. And I don't prejudge who can change. Roy Moore might get struck by lightning on the road to Damascus. And like the Apostle Paul, who was not a very nice man prior to his being confronted by that experience. I'm not saying that God necessarily needs to intervene. We need to be instruments of God's peace in this world. We need to be willing to be the lightning. We need to be willing to confront the actions of those who are manifestly harming other people.
Be kind. You see my sign over my shoulder?
Be kind to the person. I don't need to be kind to what they are saying or what they are doing. I will be kind to the police officer who shoots you in the back while you're running away. As a person, he remains a member of my family.
Just when I was mellowing down.
But I will advocate that he should have consequences for his actions. He should be accountable. We need accountability for actions.
We better stop, because you and I will go on forever and ever. So look at the camera and say something to the viewers about anything we've talked about tonight or anything that we didn't talk about. Just go for a minute or so and say something to the viewers. Michael, please.
I think it's important that rather than having hate in our heart and anger, motivated by anger toward those who we oppose, that we cultivate compassion and care for the person, even of those who are manifestly behaving in horrible ways. The person. Respect the person as you would want that person to respect you. Their actions need to sometimes be very aggressively opposed. We have the right to resist. I'm wearing that T-shirt. We have the duty to work with others in support of their liberation. We all do. The more privileged we are, the greater our duty to take risks on behalf of change.
Thank you very, very much, and I'm so glad you came on again. Thank you, Michael. And a few public service announcements before we stop. I think I want the viewers to know about the American Civil. We're going to talk about how to get my local broadcast schedule, and go to my website and click on present day activities. And which one you're going to show me now? Public service announcement? No. Oh, thanks for watching this show. Remember KFC? No, not Kentucky Fried Chicken, Dr. Don's KFC. Kind, friendly, and charitable. Be kind, be friendly, and be charitable to you too. And to you too. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time. Good job.